Hey guys, welcome. I know for a fact that if you are a game developer, at some point you are going to end up wrestling with a question that is going to plague you with guilt. And that is, should I keep working on this game? You might have consciously had the thought, or it might just be sitting in the back of your brain somewhere, but the reality is you probably have a few unfinished projects sitting on your computer somewhere. And because you've poured time and energy into it, it is something that you have to figure out if you're going to realistically continue it or not. You've probably heard the expression, you should finish what you start, but does that advice apply to indie developers? Should you finish every single game you start? I have some experience with this, so let's talk about it. This is one of those topics that I want to be a little bit careful with because the answer is nuanced, it's not black and white, and you probably know this already, but it's really going to depend on your situation. But to help us sort all of this out, let's talk about the main reason why indie developers end up quitting their projects. In my experience, devs quit their games because they lose motivation, they don't plan or scope the game appropriately, and it becomes too overwhelming at some point. They realize at some point that the game isn't fun, or at some horrifying point in development, they discover that they don't actually have the skills necessary to build that game. That is what happened with me with Veil of Maya. Or if they already happen to be working on multiple projects, then they decide to make their focus more linear and they cut the fat. There's something extremely weird about trying to make money as an indie developer, and that is you're mixing business with art. Business requires planning and action. With art, the lines are a little bit more blurred sometimes. You can plan, you should plan, and you should scope appropriately, and you should have goals. But with art, there is a natural process of creative experimentation. And that might not actually have a lot of meaning behind it until you really think about it. What does experimentation actually mean? You have something that you want to try. You don't know if it's going to be cool. You don't know if it's going to be fun yet, or funny, or whatever it is that you're going for. You have a hunch, and that's all you have. So you try it, and it either works or it doesn't, and you iterate on it or you scrap it. So what we actually mean then when we're talking about creative experimentation is that you're giving yourself room to fail a little bit and try again and fail again, etc., until you get the thing right. And this doesn't just apply with specific mechanics in your game or whatever, this can apply to entire projects as well. Now, obviously, there are some really big cons with not finishing projects. You're never going to get that feeling of satisfaction that you're searching for. You're going to miss out firsthand on what a full dev cycle actually looks like, which is really important. You could potentially even end up stuck in an endless loop of shiny object syndrome with your development, where you're constantly just starting new things over and over again. But there's a lot of pros to this as well. It's not just cons. For one, the more projects that you've worked on, the more you are going to discover what your voice is, your tastes, your preferences. You can love game dev in general, but really not enjoy working on certain genres. Even if you enjoy playing those genres, you might not enjoy working on them so much. So the more experience you have with multiple projects, the more you're going to learn about your own tastes and what you like and what you're good at. You're also going to learn a ton of new tools and systems and workflows. And this is loads of creative experimentation in a really low stakes environment. Very few people, if at all anyone outside of you, will have seen these unfinished projects. So that's room for you to tinker and learn and experiment and get better without any judgment on your projects. You're also going to get the benefit of being able to recycle some of your ideas between projects, or even some of your code. You might have started a game that was way too ambitious for you in the start, but maybe you have a mechanic or two in there that were just so unique and amazing that you can just yoink those right out of your old project and pluck them into a new one that's scoped more appropriately. So hopefully if you have any guilt about having unfinished projects on your computer, this is going to help get rid of some of that guilt a little bit. It is a natural part of the process. It is, however, also very important for you to be honest with yourself. Is quitting becoming a pattern that you're constantly doing? Do you have a good reason for moving on to a new project every time? And if that's the case, then what do you need to do differently moving forward? Now, if finishing a game is something that you are currently struggling with, then I did come across a class recently that I really think will help you out. It's on Skillshare, which is the sponsor of this video, and it is all about learning how to actually finish your indie game. Skillshare is an online learning platform with thousands of classes across game dev, art, music, productivity, and more. All classes are taught by industry experts and are available on demand so that you can learn whenever you can slot it into your schedule. And if you are struggling to finish your game, a class I really think could help you is Finish Your Indie Game, A Guide to Overcoming Game Development Challenges. This class takes a deep dive into the mindset, the challenges, and the practical steps to actually getting you to finish your game. And it is perfect if you are in that weird in-between place where you're not sure whether you want to continue with your project or move on to something else. The instructor is going to walk you through real development roadblocks and how to navigate them. So if you are ready to take the project that you're currently working on and push it past the finish line, then check out the link in the description. The first 500 people that use that link get a whole month of Skillshare for free so that you can try it out and see if it's a good fit for you. So maybe you're working on a game right now and you're not sure whether you should continue it or whether you want to finish it, or maybe it just feels like a real slog and it doesn't really feel like it's going anywhere. So should you finish that project? Well, let's take a look at a few signs that a project is actually worth pushing through and finishing. Number one, just by itself, it could just be that you really, really want to publish something. That is admirable, and it could very well be reason and motivation for you enough to actually push it past the finish line. But let's talk about your game specifically. So number two might be, are you really excited about the core mechanic or the core gameplay loop? Whatever the soul of your game is, if that excites you, that is a good indicator that this project is worth finishing. It's going to make finding motivation to keep working on it a lot easier. And this point is especially true if people found your game fun in the very, very, very early days, even before it looked good. There is often a stage with very minimal graphics and you just have the core gameplay loop in there. If that's fun, even though it's ugly and it's not flashy yet, then you've probably got something special. Number three is probably the most important one, is, are other people excited about your game? What you find fun and what other people find fun might be a lot different than you would expect. Obviously, the best scenario is when both you and your playtesters find the game fun, even if the game is really unpolished. That's why I am now a big, big believer in getting people to playtest your game as early as humanly possible. Really, as soon as you've got all of your core mechanics in there, they can see what the game is going to be, just to make sure that it's a fun idea. So that was the signs that a project is worth finishing, but let's explore a few options that might mean that your project is actually worth walking away from. Number one is if you are feeling creatively stuck and have been for a long time and you feel another project calling. Now, I want to be careful with this one because you want to make sure that this is not a pattern that you're constantly falling into. But if that's not a pattern that you have, then this might be the way to go. If it feels like working on this game is sucking the energy out of you, it's not fun to work on, it's just a complete slog and you absolutely feel like you hate it. There are points like that in the development cycle, but sometimes it might be worth walking away from it so that you can focus on something fresh and something new. Now, another option is you could do what Thomas Brush did with his game Twisted Tower. In the early days, that game was called Father, and it was a completely different game. From what I recall in one of his videos, he and his team got creatively stuck and they couldn't figure out where to take the story, so they pivoted and changed the game completely. I'll say this because, again, I want to be careful with my wording here. Just feeling stuck isn't enough because that's going to happen in any project. But when you're feeling stuck, it is a good reason to investigate why you're feeling stuck and just look at it critically. Is there something fundamentally wrong with the game, or are you just kind of at a boring part in development? Because those are two very different things. Number two is you just don't feel excited about the game anymore. That's a bad sign. Again, working on games, eventually there's going to be stuff that feels like a slog. It's not going to be fun. Every single game is going to have that. I'm not talking about those certain things. I think deep down, if you're really excited about the core, the soul of the game, there's going to be at least a small level of excitement that prevails throughout all of that. And it's going to let you get through that. Even when the finish line to your game is super far away or it feels like it's going nowhere, that excitement level should still be there on some level. If that's completely gone and the whole thing just feels like a complete chore and you hate working on it, I'm not saying the solution is to just up and quit, but again, it is worth investigating what is going on. What is the problem? Why did your excitement disappear? If the choice is between you continuing on this project and eventually just quitting game dev forever, or quitting this project and choosing a new one that excites you more, then option 2 might be the way to go for you. Overall, your mental health, your excitement, your goals, where you're at in your game dev journey. Meaning, are you still learning, or are you just doing this as a hobby for fun, or are you doing this as a legitimate business where you're trying to earn an income for you and your family? All of these things are going to play a very key role in whether or not you should continue your game or not. But if you do make the decision to quit your game and move on to something else, let yourself do it guilt-free. Every single successful developer that I know has unfinished projects on their computer that's just a part of the game. But if you are excited and you know that the game that you're working on is something special, then know that it is worth it to persevere even through the hard times, even when it does feel like a bit of a chore, and continue through that slog if that is the point in the development that you're feeling right now. That is all I got, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next week. Bye.